Arctic is an abstract game in which you will be collecting cards representing different animals, and it will form a personal pile, and you're trying to create sequences of cards of the same type next to each other. Maybe a lot of orcas in my pile next to orcas, a lot of foxes next to foxes, and so on and so forth. There are a couple of other things, but that is the general idea. I called it abstract because there's absolutely no integration between the art and the mechanics, but at least that the game or the decision to add this theme gave it an opportunity for some really nice looking, pleasant art. Again, although the mechanics have nothing to do with anything like that. We're gonna have a line of cards, landscape cards with values from 0 to 15, and then we're gonna have a token for each of the 6 types of animals in the game placed there on the 3 value card. Each player receives a token representing one of the 6 animals face down at the beginning of the game. You look at your token, but you don't show it to other people. By playing cards, the players will move these tokens in different directions, and you're trying to get your animal as high as possible. If you can try to figure out what other people have, try to move those, but you don't really have a ton of control over that. Anyways, at the end of the game, we reveal the animal, boom, that we were given at the beginning, and we scored the number of points there. Which means if you go last and you have a game effect that lets you move your animal by 2, that can be a difference between 6 and 15 points, which is pretty significant. We have the river. It's called the river. It's simply a line of 6 cards with our main animals, and that's where we draw animals from. Then we have a power card for each animal, because each turn you have the possibility of collecting one of these. How do we do that? So you will have your own personal pile of cards. So you will create the pile of cards by playing cards in front of you, face up, and they're one on top of the other, so only the top one will be visible. You will have your hand of cards, and at the beginning of your turn, you need to play cards on top of your deck. Now, the card that is showing on top of your deck has a symbol like that and a number. That is the number of cards you need to play from your hand into your pile. So I need to open my turn, start my turn by playing 3 cards from hand. And I decide then I want to play these 3 cards, and I want to play them in this order, because remember, ultimately I want cards to be of the same type next to each other. So this way I get the walrus there, and I put them there. Boom, that's it. Now there is an animal visible, which may or may not be the same that I had before. So if I don't have it yet, I collect the power card of that animal, and these power cards have 2 powers, and you can flip them, and so you can have different powers each time. And if I don't have it yet, I take it from wherever it is, maybe in the middle of the table early in the game, maybe somebody else has it. No, you don't, no more. Now I have it, and that will give me different kind of powers. Here, for example, I can draw cards from the deck instead of drawing them only from the river. So I played cards. Also need to plan, because I know the next turn I will start my turn by playing 2 cards, because that's a new visible thing. Or what if the number of cards you should play, you don't have enough? Say I only have 1 and I would need 3. Then I draw the remaining 1 from the deck face down, and I place them in a personal penalty pile. Boo! Cards in my penalty pile would be worth 1 point of penalty at the end of the game. So I start by playing cards, taking the power card, possibly, if I don't have it yet. Then you see each animal has 2 symbols there. One is the main animal, one a companion. Here I have the orca and the puffin. That is what moves those tokens from that area up there. Now, if the 2 tokens, let's say orca and the puffin, are not on the edges, Then I can move one in one direction of my choice and the other in the opposite direction. I can move one here and one there, or it could have been the other way. Boom. If one of them is on an edge, then I need to move that one toward the center, and the other one is the opposite direction. If they're both on the edges, they both move toward the center. So back to us. What were we doing? Playing number of cards there based on the card that was visible at the beginning of the turn. Possibly collect the power card. Definitely move those tokens. And then you draw cards, and the number of cards that you draw is the one indicated there. And you can only have up to 7 cards in hand. I need to draw 4. I have 3, so that's pretty good. Because if I had to draw cards in excess of 7, all the excess cards go, you guessed it, in the penalty pile. So that's the general idea. Play cards, collect power cards, use power cards, move tokens, draw cards, and you continue like this until we have exhausted the deck. At that point, we score points. And we look at our pile. Again, you should try to make sequences of the same animal. Oopsie, there you go. Next to each other. A sequence is 2 cards, at least 2 cards of the same animal next to each other. Now you check every animal, and you look, each player looks for the longest sequence that they have. And we score it this way. A sequence of 3 is worth 3 points, 4, 6 points, 5, 10 points. So for each animal, each player scores the longest sequence. Then you score the number of unique sequences that you have using the same table here. I have sequences for 5 animals, that is 10 points. And then we get points for those animal tokens there. Again, there can be a huge swing there. We lose points for the cards in our penalty pile, and the player with the highest total wins the game. So I have mixed feelings about Arctic. There are some things that I like, but honestly not a ton. And things that I did not enjoy quite as much. Now, I played it with 2 players, and I may not be the one who decides, hey, let's play Arctic. But if somebody decides to play it and it's just 2 people, myself and another person, I may even play. But I don't think I want to play with more than 2 people. Why? Because of the downtime and the analysis paralysis. Like with 2 players, I was feeling it a little. I think with 3 or 4, it would be extremely annoying. You can do some planning before your turn to reduce downtime, but it doesn't really matter a lot because that planning that you do is very simple. Look at the cards that you have in your hand, try to put all the cards at the same time next to each other, and really the only thing that matters is which card goes on top. But then the player before you will change the offer of cards, and that's when the bigger decisions come. Also, you need to check every time, well, which powers do I still have? Which powers should I use or can I use? And with 2 players, well, they will switch from time to time, but I can only, and you still have to double check, do I still have it? With 3, 4 players, I think that will become more chaotic, and I would just spend a lot of time thinking about strategies around effects I don't have anymore. That may be frustrating. So, in general, play with 2 players. Again, I think it was okay, but it felt like a lot of work for what the game is, which is put together sequences of cards that are all the same. And I felt that I spent a lot more time worrying about things that I didn't want to happen rather than creating a strategy that felt satisfying because I was building up to something. Yeah, from time to time I would pull off a sequence of foxes or other animals, but ultimately that had a lot to do with finding those cards in the river already. Then I just grab them. Nothing else. I don't want the other player to have them. And with 7 cards in hand, you don't have a lot of planning that you can do from one turn to the other. Over a period of time, I'm building this awesome sequence because I have up to 7. I need to play 4. and maybe I draw two. So I always felt like just there trying not to draw, not to have too few or too many cards to really build up some big strategies. It just felt like, oh, there's an obvious big set there. I'll grab it and play next turn. So, but there are a lot of steps. Move those tokens, move this, move that, check all the effects, and those tokens with the scoring, again, there is a card that allows you to move one of those tokens an extra space if you have that. And I think I mentioned in the main segment, if you have that and you play last and you move your token by two spaces, that's a huge gap of points, which kind of makes a lot of the other things that you did kind of irrelevant. Because again, more or less everybody gets the idea. Get a lot of foxes next to each other, get a lot of bears next to each other. There isn't a lot of strategy, but there's a lot of work that you need to do to get to that. Not a lot of strategy, which to me is kind of wasteful. Again, it's a two-player game. As a filler, maybe, but it doesn't feel like a filler. It feels like a lot more complicated than a filler, but the length overall is that of a filler. So again, if somebody wants to play it and it's just the two of us, I may even say yes. But and the art is very pretty. I definitely enjoy the art, but there is no integration with the theme. And again, the game is just too convoluted for a filler and a little too restrictive. I felt I didn't have a lot of agency, and therefore what I did didn't matter much because I just couldn't really do much. I didn't have enough control to really be passionate about my strategy. And this is my assessment of Arctic.